G'day guys, this is Draymond here with a trial and error video on drawbridges and their activators. Just be aware that this video is not intended as a tutorial, rather it's a learning experience aimed at developing an understanding of the mechanics at work here. I've set up this map with a few different drawbridge configurations, hoping to try and shed some light on exactly how they work. Before I get into it, here's my camera settings that I've used for this map, just in case you're interested. I've also disabled fog, which isn't the same as the fog of war, by going into the fog settings and setting the alpha at both ends of the gradient to 0, making the fog transparent and rendering it invisible. Here, in this first example, there's nothing fancy going on. We've got an Imperium Console 1 and an Imperium Console 2, each with their own Imperium Console tank and a destructible drawbridge SPA. And so there's nothing here in this particular configuration that should prohibit this from working. The next thing I wanted to investigate is whether or not a single pair of console and tank could activate more than one drawbridge. And as you can see, it doesn't activate both the drawbridges. For my third test, I've just tried moving one of the tank and console pairs slightly away from the bridge. I've included two examples, one for each side of the bridge. So far so good. I wanted to check if tanks and consoles could activate a bridge that they were above or below in this case. And sure enough, that seems to work as well. The next thing I wanted to investigate was whether or not a tank and a console had to be directly next to each other, or if there could be a little bit of space in between the two. So out of the two tanks that I could destroy, surely the tank with the activator further away should be the more problematic one. But once again, it works. Okay, so if it works with the console so far away from the tank, does the tank even need a console next to it? Well, apparently not. And so, speaking of weird behaviour, I wonder if the tanks will chain destruct. Just to be thorough, I'm going to take one of the ones that did work and add a third tank in just to see if it produces the same result.
You have Xenos for us to slay.
This one's mostly just for curiosity's sake. I want to see if multiple sets can be triggered at once, but this time each gate gets its own console tank pair. So yeah, don't ask me how that works. During the making of this video, I heard from Chaotic Nightmare in the comments of my previous video on drop bridges. Chaotic Nightmare reckons they got it figured out, and so I'll run you through the proposed solution now. To understand the way that this works, I'm going to have to explain something about what a unique identifier is. Pretty much in all games, apps, and even some software, things get assigned a identification number, a unique identification number that sets them apart from all other instances of that object and just all other things in general, so that the code can point directly to an item in reference. To show you what this means in the context of the world builder, you're going to need to use the Select Objects tool. I'll select everything in this drawbridge set, and you'll see that each object is assigned a ID, and they're all unique. Also notice that the drawbridge is the last one in the list, being numbered 12. To start off with, you get your console 1 and place that first. Place console 2 second, then place the first tank, the second tank, and place the drawbridge last, that being the most important thing. And that way, in the objects list, the drawbridge will always come up last is because it's the most recent addition. I've done my own testing on this and I can verify that this works. And not only does it work, but it looks like this could actually be the mechanic behind the console and tank grouping to each individual gate. I'm going to give a bit of a crude example using Notepad to start off with, just to get the concept across. Let's just imagine that console 1 is an actual console in-game, and next to it here, this 1 is its unique ID. The tank's 2, console 2 is 3, and so forth. Just this knowledge alone is enough to close the case on drawbridges. As long as you just follow this setup, your bridges and gates will work. But as I said before, I want to dig a little bit deeper and find out what the limitations are. For example, what if I was to add a couple of walls before adding a bridge? Just how many gaps can there be, if any at all? And also, do I have to add the consoles and tanks in a particular order, or can they be in any order, so long as they precede the bridge in the 4 ID spots previous? In following with the example that I gave in Notepad, I'm going to place a console 1, a console 2, then 2 tanks. Now before I place the bridge, I'm going to add a couple of other items just to give a bit of a spacer. 1, 2, 3, and now I'll come back and add the bridge. To make things easier, I've used the color map editor to write each object's unique ID next to the object. I ended up preparing 5 different setups. I'll run you through each of them now. And of course, it wouldn't be World Builder if it didn't try and drive me nuts from time to time.
Not what I had in mind.
So I ran through each of these setups after putting in the spacing, and I found that it was just each bridge being too close together that was causing them all to blow up at the same time. So to finish up, I just want to run through a couple of things that I think I've learned about the mechanics here. Remembering that the top line is the gates, second line are the tanks, third is the consoles, and fourth line is any spaces I used. So to start off with, I think I've proved that leaving spaces in between the IDs doesn't seem to break the mechanics, and the bridge should still drop down when activated. I've only tested 3, 5 and 6 spaces, so I can't guarantee it'll work with any more than that. Just as a point of interest, I've got a map that I'm working on that has a bridge that doesn't work. I checked it just before, and sure enough there's a gap of 19 between the bridge and the next tank, and then the rest are even further away than that. Next up, I've shown that it doesn't matter if you place the tank or the console first, as evident in the first and second example. And lastly, I've shown that there can be a space anywhere in between each of these objects and it should still work. Once again, that's only with a small space. Just a reminder, in case you're at all confused by this, I'm talking about the number spacing in between the IDs, not the physical spacing out on the map. It's proving to be quite the challenge to figure out all the limitations, just how time consuming all the trial and error is. But we are getting there. With each passing day, more and more stuff is being figured out. Hopefully within a week or so we'll have a fairly polished tutorial with all of this stuff nutted out. And don't forget, there's no reason why you can't use the bridges and gates at the moment, just following the base formula of placing any combination of tank and console followed directly by the gate. Just want to give a special shout out to amidst and Chaotic Nightmare, who've played a massive part in developing our understanding of the mechanics behind the drawbridges and gates. That's it from me, as always. Cheers for watching.